Maybe one rule should be don't say stupid things to your wife, Mark. Good day, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Monday Morning Moments with Mark. I hope this finds you well. So, as you saw in the open and as indicated by the title, this is part one of On Rules. However, this episode is not going to be about why you should follow the rules or how to make your own rules or anything like that. It's actually me going over the rules that I have come up with as life rules over time, and you can actually find them on my website, boughtinforthewin.com, and review them at your leisure if you'd like to. So I'll explain a little bit more about where the rules came from and how I've developed them. But first, we have to have the funniest thing. And the funniest thing this week comes courtesy of me and my big fat mouth and me putting my foot in it. So my wife and I were out looking for Ziploc style sandwich bags and trying to be environmentally conscious. We looked for the compostable ones available at Target. No, they didn't pay me to say that, but I wish they did. So that's just where we happen to get these ones from. And we're like looking at the different brands, price comparison, being smart, educated shoppers and everything. And I looked at them and I went, "Hey, look, these ones are gluten free. You can eat them." And she looks at me, and I think like I made a funny joke, and she's like, "That's actually important, so that I know that what they're made out of doesn't contaminate my food," because she has a gluten intolerance, gluten allergy. And yeah, I felt pretty stupid after that one because I didn't think about that. But nevertheless, if she wants to, she can still go eat the bag. So hey, you never know. Anyways, moving on to talk about rules. Maybe one rule should be don't say stupid things to your wife, Mark. So, anyways, these rules that I have, a lot of them have come up from just being either good at the things that I've said, like throw out a one liner and people are like, wow, hey, that's really good advice. And then I think to myself, well, let me try that rule out for a minute and see if it's really a rule or if it was just something I just threw out there. Because there's plenty of things that I've said that sounded good in the moment, but they're not necessarily like a hard and fast rule. So these particular ones are things that I have actually tested out for a while, and I've come to believe them to be true across all scenarios in life, at least the ones I've come to. As it says on the website, they're available for discussion. So if you want to, give me your opinion on them, I certainly welcome that. I'm always open for growth and seeing things in a different light. So, hey, some rules are meant to be broken, and we can certainly change these. But the reason I wanted to do this episode was because a lot of times my former students would ask me, hey, can you explain that? Or what do you mean by that? Or, hey, what about in this scenario? Does that make it a rule? So I've wanted to do this episode for a while where I just kind of go over them and sort of explain like the origin of them and what it means to me to kind of put some perspective to it. So without further ado, we'll try and get through the first 11 of them today, and then next week follow up with the last 11. There's currently 22. I have a couple in my brain right now that I'm still working and putting through the metric test to see if they're actually viable rules, but we won't get into those right now. But rule number one, the only thing you have to worry about is what you have to do next, courtesy of a friend of mine, Roy O'Hara, who went through a course with me some number of years ago back in my Marine Corps days. And what that rule means, the only thing you have to worry about is what you have to do next, means that if it's not the next thing you're going to do, it's not worth stressing over. That doesn't mean it doesn't need to be of concern. That doesn't mean it doesn't need to occupy some sort of space in your brain. But it's not worth worrying over because it's not the next thing coming. Those are the only things that should cause you any worry. So, moving on to rule number two, also courtesy of Roy O'Hara, is never personally compromise yourself. This one, people ask me about this a lot. And there's a lot of different applications for this. But essentially what it says is don't do anything that's going to put yourself in a situation where you have no way out of it. And don't do that to yourself. And it really, the context of how you apply that sort of depends on the situation and what it would mean to not personally compromise yourself. But there's any number of different examples out there that you could think of. So, rule number three, be careful who you associate yourself with. Inevitably, you will begin to act like them. I don't actually remember the origin of this one, but I do know that it's definitely true. Whoever you associate yourself with, you will begin to pick up on their behavior traits. So be very careful who you associate yourself with. And that is an inevitable thing. It's kind of human nature of assimilation. Even if you don't intend to, you will still pick up on some of their behaviors and mannerisms, things like that. So be careful. Rule number four comes from a great mentor of mine, Chief Warrant Officer Tony Martino. Be careful what you ask for. Chances are you're going to get it. I seem to say this one more and more and more the older I get in life. because it's true. A lot of times you ask for something and then you get it and you don't know what to do with it. So be careful what you ask for and make sure that you're ready to receive it. Make sure that you understand the totality of what you're asking for and the second and third order effects that come from that. Rule number 5, it's okay to be wrong, just not about the same thing twice. And a lot of people have debated me on this one, saying, well, sometimes it takes more than one time for somebody to learn something. While that is true, it's not that you don't make the or fail or make the same error in something, but to do it exactly the same way again intentionally just to get the exact same result. It's kind of like the definition of insanity. But in order, really, this one's about growth. There has to be some kind of growth. So just don't be wrong exactly the exact same way twice, unless you're testing some sort of theory and you want to make sure that it fails twice. That's different. Rule number 6, do what you have to now so you can do what you want to later. That's simply a matter of putting your responsibilities and priorities first. Do what you have to now so that you can do what you want to later. And one of my former students, Cassie, she would always say, well, there's always going to be a have to. So when do you stop doing what you have to? And my answer was always that eventually the what you want to do also becomes the what you have to do. And that's where you find the happy and joy at. So, rule number 7, you have to have a plan so you know how far off you are. Thank you, Chief Warrant Officer Kevin Ackerman. He said that to me one day, and it really is true. If you don't have any kind of plan for where you're going, you will have no idea if you're succeeding or failing. You have to have some degree to measure it. It's okay to be completely charted off course, but you got to know where you came from so you can get back to square one and start back over. Rule number 8, don't let your pursuit of perfection become your imperfection. I came up with this. This is one of those things where I just said it one day in a classroom and it stuck. And it turns out that it really is a true rule. Don't let trying to make everything be so meticulously accurate that you actually allow that to be the imperfection of the process. A lot of people can, another way of saying this is paralysis by analysis. And in the Marine Corps, a lot of times we would say, give me a good 80% solution. That's all you really need. So, rule number 9, never let them see you sweat unless you're supposed to be sweating. In that case, make sure they know you're sweating. But basically, this one is about keeping your cool in situations so that, never let them see you sweat. However, the caveat to that is unless you're supposed to be sweating. If it is an instance where you're supposed to be exerting yourself and it's that kind of a situation, then make sure they know that you're putting in the work. Rule number 10, find a way. There's always a way. If there isn't one, make one. I don't care what anyone says. At every point in time in history, something was impossible that has been done because here we are. And the things that we think that are impossible now, in another lifetime, they will have been done and accomplished. So there is always a way. If there is not a way, then take the time to create one if it's that meaningful to you. Otherwise, stop worrying about it. And lastly, for this episode, rule number 8 from my good friend Glenn Martini. It's helpful for intelligent people to disagree. It is great when someone presents a fact-based, tried and true, and they can back it up, different perspective than your own. Or not necessarily different, but new to you, where your limited knowledge base only allows you to see something a certain way, and someone comes with a totally different vision of it, and you're just like, wow, I never in a million years would have thought of that. It is healthy, that's good growth, and that's what makes us become better, stronger people. So thank you, Glenn, for that one. So we'll stop there, and we'll pick it up again next week, going over the last 12 rules, but in essence, just trying to point out, a couple of things that I try to live by, and they're always evolving, just like we should all be. So take some time this week to look over the rules that you have for yourself, maybe make a few new ones. Have a great week.